That is crazy to think. You had two different funerals. One Jewish, one Muslim, right next to each other.
Yeah, it's
so
very powerful.
Han Meditations. Hello, guys. I am Han. This is Kelly.
Hi, everyone.
And we have a special guest. His name is Corbin, 5D Fine Arts.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm back.
And we are Han Meditation. We're back with another interesting, exciting interview to just let you guys know, because this is one of my best friends, my cousin, my family. He has gone so many different places, guys. He's been in Muslim countries, something that we haven't even done yet. And he's been all around the world. And he actually... Unfortunately, he just came back from a Muslim funeral, and we just wanted to talk about that with him a little bit and see what his experience was like. So I want to ask you, Corbin, what was it like when you first got there?
So that funeral was just 2 days ago. The experience, it's a whole nother process with a Muslim funeral. So the first day there was a ceremony. So from what I know, I guess the correct pronunciation, what is it? I think it's janaza. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the term for the Muslim funerals. First day there was a ceremony, and it goes on from what I was there experiencing, about 5 hours or so. Then the second day is the actual funeral and the burying, where they're going to go to the actual graveyard, and then from after that, they're going to go back to the temple, the mosque, correct? And then they're going to have their prayer and food and everything like that. So I know that from what I remember is when a great friend of mine, their father passed, then, she said, hey, we're going to have the funeral, and then it has to be within 24 hours. I was like, whoa. And that basically, that's the process for the janaza. It's within 24 hours, or they try to be as close to the death as possible. And I didn't see a lot of people wearing black with a lot of the funerals that I grew up seeing in the United States. A lot of people, they had colorful or white clothes. Women, of course, had the hijab, and there was a lot of prayer involved with it. So,
we come from the same background where our family are pretty strict Christians. And then we kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say broke off, completely, but got into more spirituality, realizing that we do believe in God, but, coming from it from a more spiritual perspective. So whenever you're witnessing these prayers, did you feel the spiritual energy in the room? Was it different than what you maybe expected from Muslim people or thought beforehand?
Yeah, it was very powerful, and I stepped in and I could feel the energy of the. It was a place they rented out. I think was a mosque, but the prayer, it made me feel. It felt. The energy actually felt high vibrational, and I didn't see a lot of the tears that I thought I would see, where a lot of people were crying or moping around. It was more so a celebratory experience of the person's life. From what I know, the janaza, the prayer, it's like a specific duty, and it was a long actual experience that went on, and it was
so how long were they praying
most
for?
Of the time? So for example,
roughly, and people know that you're not an expert as well, so you don't have to know everything.
trying to
but it's fresh in your mind.
Okay, for example.
Well, I was gonna say maybe if you said it was a long ceremony the first day, maybe just like break down a bit of the itinerary, Okay,
so
and then honestly, that you're not Muslim, but you were just experiencing it as the first time from someone who is non-Muslim. But I think that's a really interesting perspective, anyway.
So to sum it up, the whole process of the janaza, they say it's first is preparation, funeral prayers, burial, and then community duty, simplicity, and humility, I guess. And then the last, respect for the deceased. So I felt every last one of those processes, even though when they were speaking, I couldn't decipher what they were, saying. What's the language in the Quran again?
Arabic.
So basically, they were speaking a lot of Arabic. But so the first day was the ceremony started at 5 p.m. Then there was the relative speaking on the podium. From what I know, it was the brother of the deceased. And then it was, first hour, there was still prayer. And then after the second hour, that was the communal prayer when everybody kind of joined in and bowed their heads. And then keep in mind, they were all on their, it's big carpet. So what I know is their prayer sacred space.
So this was at a mosque?
I think it was, what I know, this was, I think they were mosque. It was like, I thought it was a community center because this is a place that they would rent out. Then they would have food there. So that's why I thought it was maybe either their community center or a mosque. But either way, it was, to me, it's the energy of the mosque was in there. And so after 1 or 2 hours, there was still prayer. And then the relative would speak about the life of the man who died and how great he was, what he did for his family. So like I said, it was not trying, it was trying to be more celebratory of how great they were, to where I didn't feel like it was completely a sad experience. Because I know some funerals I've gone to is just really sad. There's a lot of black. And this was the first day. The second day I know was a little different because they did the actual burial. They did have show the body. So I don't know if I'm wrong, but do they usually do open casket with Muslims?
I mean, this is something that we're learning about too.
Yeah.
As much as we studied Islam and the Muslim religion as a whole, we haven't done anything about really the burial process and funerals. So this is really interesting for us to hear as well, because we've never been to a Muslim funeral. So
the only thing we learned is like there's a particular cleansing process to the body, but that's all we really know.
Well, this is really where I'm meant to share my experience, because month before that, the funeral, that was a Jewish funeral.
Oh,
remember my a great coach of mine passed, and he was Jewish, and that was actually at a synagogue.
Oh,
so then this is really a great time to where I could share the experience and the contrast, because in Judaism they're not going to do the open casket. They're not going to do that same tradition where they're going to show the body, then take basically show him off in that fashion. But the synagogue experience was also very profound. There was a lot of prayer from the scripts from what I think they call the Torah.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they were speaking in Hebrew. So I had those two experiences, and that was within the same
within a week or two of each other.
Within 2 weeks of each other.
I never really thought about that.
Think about that. Yeah.
That is crazy to think. You had two different funerals. One Jewish, one Muslim, right next to each other.
Yeah,
so,
very powerful.
Was there, having that contrast of both of them, I'm sure that they were both powerful, that they were both spiritual, and that they were both loving and lovely. Was there a point where you felt one was maybe more, just connected or in tune with who you were in a sense? I know it's hard to say, but or was there any kind of like spirituality that you're connected to with either of them?
I related to both. It's just, I think when the Islam was spoken or the Hebrew was spoken, they're both very musical languages from what I know. And then when the man was reading from the Torah, it was like he was speaking in song. I mean, like the language in Hebrew, it's like the tone very musical. And in Islam also, some of it sounds very musical in how they recite what their prayers. And I was feeling that, and I was relating to both in just a sense that I was understanding and grieving the loss of a loved one, and I just felt like how their culture is very respectable, and it made me feel very good that they have such a real organized process like that. And there's like boom, one prayer after the other, and I have a hard time putting it into words. And because it was very new to me, and I had to wrap up how that was at a synagogue and also a mosque, as it's basically my first time doing that in either one of the religion's funerals.
Did you notice anything like how the men were acting, or how the women were acting, or the children, or anything like that?
And for the ceremony, did people sit together by family, or were men and women separated?
Okay, so this is for the Islam funeral?
Yes.
Okay, so this is where it was very particular because, of course, the women have the hijab. So on the right side going in, there were chairs throughout the whole room. On the right side, you have women sitting. And on the left side, there's the men. And then if you go further up, there's a podium, and then there's a big carpet. There's more people sitting. They could be sitting down, legs crossed or whatever. And that's where they were doing, like, they would do a lot of the, they would do more of, like, their prayers in that area. Okay. And then the people sitting maybe weren't actually the family, from what I understood.
Oh, okay.
So then at one point I sat on the right side next to a friend, and then she said, no, you're supposed to sit over there with the men. And then I said, oh, okay. So then it was separated in that sense, and a lot of the men, of course, they covered their head. I think that's a lot of a tradition where men cover their head a lot in the Muslim culture. And of course, like I already said, the women had hijabs.
Yeah.
So that was the most noticeable part. It was just the room was separated just like that, men and then women. And then I think that then there was food right behind us, and
who had the better food? Who had the better food? The Muslims or the Jewish people?
That's easy because I didn't have food at the synagogue, and I was thinking. The thing is, I mentioned it to my mom, and then, she said with their process, it's a little bit different because they're just more focused on the funeral. Where even when we ended the funeral, we weren't just supposed to stay and socialize as much. It was more of they treated it more as like, okay, we have the funeral, compartmentalize that, and if you want to go do anything socialized, that happens out the synagogue. Whatever food and all that would happen out the synagogue. So I remember at the point when the funeral ended. In the synagogue where the Jewish people are, it ended and they said, okay, you guys, I said, hey, I saw like my old friends, and I said, hey, how you guys doing? They said, you guys got to go. It's over. This is the process of how we do it. So it was a difference.
You had to leave like immediately after?
Yeah, that's how it was in the synagogue, and it felt like it was like less of socializing all in the same place, less of food. So basically we didn't have any food there, and it was like, okay, the process ends, and we do the prayer. The guy did the prayers, and then that was it. So I think for me it was just a difference in two different traditions. So maybe the food aspect is included in the janaza. I got to research that more, but for the
people
Jewish
will tell us in the comments too, so don't feel like you have to know everything. They'll tell us,
Yeah, there were two great experiences, but just two completely different experiences, basically. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because whenever I'm really thinking about it, and whenever we're talking about it, it really is one of those situations where, if you have food there, you're going to be. It really does turn to more of a celebration of life.
Yeah.
Whenever you're eating, because a lot of times whenever you go somewhere you don't have food, it's like, especially in like Black culture, it's like you want to eat. I don't know how.
Well, that's the difference. That's the difference too. The Muslim funeral was a West African. They were a West African family. The other
what
family,
part of what's that?
Yeah, this was Sierra Leone.
Oh, okay, Sierra Leone.
And then for the,
I'm sure we probably have people watching from there.
And as far as the Jewish wedding at the synagogue, that was from a Polish. They were Polish Jewish.
Oh,
just to specify, in case anybody was wondering. And two different processes, and there. In West Africa, they like their jollof rice, and Sierra Leone, they cook a lot of spicy rice, fufu, and then that was served at the end of it. It was really good.
Oh, wow.
So did you wear regular clothes, or did you wear any particular clothing? And then how did that make you feel once you were there?
Okay, so which funeral? Now we got to specify because my mind is like, for the Muslim funeral.
Actually, or for both, yeah.
Okay,
did people dress a certain way for the Jewish one?
Oh yeah. Well,
how do they dress?
So we'll start for the Muslim funeral for the first day, because remember it was 2 days.
Yeah.
So for the ceremony, I literally I wore my shirt like this, but I had it buttoned up. So I had this, then some slacks, and some of the other Muslims wore the hat on their head, the traditional hat, and then I was able to wear this, and some people had just button-down shirts, or what is the name of the tunic that a lot of Muslims wear?
It's just like a prayer outfit.
Yeah.
So.
A lot of men had that. A lot of men had that. A lot of men had that. Then the woman had very beautiful dresses on with like floral paisley patterns. Then they had covered their head, and I was like, man, they're really dressed very gorgeous. But it was a lot of bright colors. Like I said, not a lot of black. So they were dressed like that. And then at the synagogue for the Jewish funeral, that was 2 weeks prior, they were more so in shirt and tie or suits.
Oh.
And also the yarmulke, of course. How did I forget that? The yarmulke is a prominent piece for men to wear in Judaism, so they all had that. Or the prayer shawl, I guess it's called the prayer shawl that goes along the pants of the men. It looks like a little like decorative string that hangs on the side of the pants for the men.
So, like, whenever you came back from the Muslim wedding, like it was like you were like glowing almost. Like you had a kind of the funeral, the Muslim funeral. It was like you were glowing. You had did you feel some kind of connection to God when you were there?
It was such a sense of community, and I was like, when I stepped in there, I expected, like I said, most funerals I'm expecting to just be sad and a lot of the moping, crying. So I didn't experience. There weren't a lot of people kind of just really sobbing most of the time. A lot of the space it felt like a real sacred space of just like prayer and like, okay, we're all gonna come together, recite the prayer, appreciate how much we loved him. I mean, it could happen at most funerals too, but this one was different because those prayers, even though I couldn't understand basically language-wise what they were saying, the tone and where they were recited, it sounded so harmonic, it sounded so uplifting to me. Something in it resonated, and it was it made it for a very powerful time. And it seemed very, like I said, it was such a sacred moment.
Wow.
You know?
I mean, it really does seem sacred. And I talked to you on the phone a little bit while you were there. I could hear people in the background. It didn't sound like you were at a funeral. It sounded like people were there talking, chatting, and really celebrating life. Because it seemed like they really do trust God, and they trust the process of the afterlife and whatever happens, knowing that their loved one is going to be okay.
Yeah, and to make a comparison, also most funerals there's a lot of people who would go up and speak, right? Remember we would go to any funeral, it could be for a family member. There's always like, hey, the mama could speak or the brother could speak. Then so Islam was more. They had, from what I remember, it was like, I could say only 3 to 4 speakers, maybe 3 at that. But it was also, there was a very, it was a really big decision, because I know one of the daughters said, hey, I want to speak. And a lot of them, they huddled into a part of the room and they had to talk about it, if she was going to speak or not, it was the right time. So it was a different process because there's a lot of prayer involved. That was the primary thing for I think it was the janaza, the Muslim funeral. And then at the synagogue for the Jewish funeral, they had more so what I was used to of the brother or the son speaking, wife speaking, and that whole type of lineup. So I think there were more speakers with the Jewish funeral. So I don't know if that's the norm. Correct me if I'm wrong. But
I'm sure families are going to do things a little variations of things, but you notice that in the Muslim one there's a little more prayer. And then the Jewish one there's a little more people speaking.
A lot more speaking about all the things that the person did and when they were alive. And
that's interesting because even from Christian funerals, you don't get too much prayer, I feel like.
Not too much.
I mean, even the last funeral that we went together for our uncle that passed, it was in a church and there was prayer, but it wasn't like prolonged, It
kind of feels like a Christian one. It's almost is like a regular mass ceremony. Do you guys call church mass? They call it mass okay. So it almost feels like it is like a kind of a regular mass ceremony, but they just incorporate, you know, some people going up and speaking and some extra prayer and words for the person who passed on.
And also, so to incorporate Christian funerals, also music too. A lot of the funerals in Christianity, there's a lot of the music. It could be the music that could be kind of somber and make you feel a little bit of like more of the memory of the person, or it could be more of the music like gospel music in that sense. But yeah, so there was no music in the mosque or the synagogue when I went for the funeral at all. But yeah, so most Christian funerals I experienced, there was music. And I'm not sure how it is at a Christian funeral, like an Orthodox Christian, maybe like a Roman Catholic, maybe funeral, because they could maybe have more prayer at those funerals if it's very Orthodox. But I think, I didn't know, I didn't know there wouldn't be any music for the mosque and the synagogue. Basically,
Yeah, it's interesting because when you think about a Christian funeral, at least as far as like in the West, you know, it's like the tradition is pretty much to wear all black.
Yeah.
And that's very different from what you just described, where it was extremely colorful.
Yeah,
that's really interesting.
It wasn't like there was black for the when I was with. Oh, that was a bag that just.
Oh, don't worry about it. That's her bag.
Is that a spirit coming through? That's another story. So, there wasn't a lot of black for the Muslim funeral, and then also for.
Like that's kind of interesting because the black backpack just fell, and now you can see my red purse that was behind it.
Is it symbolic?
Just saying.
That's why I say that's another podcast, and
I don't know.
if that is a spirit coming through, God bless them. You know, but. Remember we had our relative passed. We had an uncle that passed. He said he didn't want us to wear black. To his funeral. He actually requested that we would wear white, and we all were white.
Yeah.
But as far as the traditional sense, it's black clothing, and but it's just interesting because when there's a pastor reading from the Bible during the funeral, I could always understand what they're saying. They're reciting Corinthians or John, whatever type of segment in the Bible. But when it comes to Hebrew, when they're reading from, I think it's the Torah, I'm at a loss. And when they're reading from the Quran, also in Arabic, I was at a loss with that.
Right.
Something in my heart, I felt it though, but I wasn't understanding what those languages were saying. And it was a really great experience. It was putting me a little out the comfort zone, and it helps whenever that happens. You get out the comfort zone, you grow, you know, to go into a whole nother culture's funeral. At 34 years old, it was very
that
very
really
memorable
is
experience.
Beautiful, and we're grateful for you sharing this experience with us. With you going to two different funerals, one Jewish, one Islamic, and it really is such a beautiful concept. Learning about life, learning about love and connection and celebration of people. And we're going to have you on our podcast even more and on our show so that you can talk more, so you can react to videos with us as well. And we're looking forward to that, guys. So stay tuned for that. We're going to go back to doing daily videos, guys, for you guys very soon. We had a very busy month this last couple weeks. So just stay tuned, guys. Thank you for being here.
Everyone.
Thank you for watching the video. Thank you for liking, subscribing, commenting.
Con and Kelly been
Thank
busy
you to Corbin.
for you guys.
Exactly, guys. And thank you to everyone who donated to the channel.
Thank you.
We love you. We'll see
Appreciate you
in the next video.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.